She whispered, "Please don't make me go back in a snowstorm." No one noticed. One billionaire stopped when everyone else drove past. What began as a moment of kindness unraveled a hidden truth, proving that sometimes saving one child can change an entire life forever. Snow fell thick and steady over Silverpine, Colorado, turning the quiet town into a world of white silence. Streetlights flickered like tired stars, barely cutting through the storm. The road was empty, too empty, and then movement. A small figure stood beneath a street lamp, almost swallowed by the falling snow. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her name was Maisie Hart. She wore a thin pink coat that had seen too many winters, and in her mittened hands, she clutched a small white plush bunny with one bent ear. Beside her, a tiny suitcase leaned awkwardly on one broken wheel. Maisie didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply whispered, her breath trembling into the cold night, "Please, don't make me go back." The words were soft, too soft for a child. They carried the weight of someone who had already learned how silence works. Snow gathered on her lashes. Her boots were damp. Every step felt uncertain, not because the road was dangerous, but because she didn't know where it led. She only knew one thing: turning around wasn't an option. Maisie hugged the bunny closer, pressing its soft fabric against her cheek, as if it could still remember warmth. "Cloud," she murmured. "Mommy said you'd keep me safe." In her mind, she saw her mother Lily standing by a small kitchen window, humming gently while snow tapped the glass. That was before the world got confusing. Before goodbyes that never came back. The wind howled louder. Maisie took another step forward, then another, her suitcase rattling quietly behind her. Each sound felt too loud in the empty street. Far down the road, headlights appeared through the storm. They slowed, and for the first time that night, Maisie stopped walking. The black sedan cut through the snow like a blade, headlights slicing the darkness. Inside sat Callum Sterling, 38, tailored coat, buttoned tight jaw, set with the discipline of a man who measured life in margins and outcomes. Snow meant delays. Delays meant problems. His phone buzzed against the console. Another message from the board, another reminder that control was everything. Callum didn't check it. His eyes stayed on the road. Then he saw her. At first his mind rejected it. A trick of the snow. A shadow. But the headlights caught a flash of pink, a suitcase tipping sideways, a child far too small to be alone in a storm like this. Callum's foot hit the brake before logic could speak. The car slowed, tires gripping the ice. His pulse spiked, not from fear but from something unfamiliar. Hesitation. Call it in, his thoughts said. Someone else will handle it. That's how the world worked. Efficient, clean, detached. But the car stopped anyway. The engine hummed. Snow tapped against the windshield. Callum sat there for a long moment, hands tight on the steering wheel, staring at the figure beneath the streetlight. She didn't move. She didn't wave. She just stood there, clutching something white to her chest. Callum exhaled slowly and stepped out into the cold. The wind hit him instantly, sharp and unforgiving. Snow settled on his shoulders as he approached. Not fast, not slow. Careful. He crouched a few steps away, lowering himself to her eye level, keeping his hands visible. "Hey," he said gently. "It's okay. I'm not here to scare you." The girl looked up. Her eyes were wide, clear, and impossibly tired. "I got confused," she whispered. Callum swallowed. "What's your name, Maisie?" He nodded as if anchoring himself to the sound of it. "I'm Callum, and you look very cold." She hesitated, then said the words that would change everything. "Please, don't make me go back." Callum didn't ask where she came from. He didn't ask why she was alone. He knew better. Instead, he slowly unbuttoned his coat and held it out, not touching her, not forcing anything. Just offering. "This might help," he said. Maisie stared at the coat as if it were something fragile. something that could disappear if she reached too fast. After a moment, she nodded. Callum wrapped it gently around her shoulders, careful to leave space, careful to let her decide how close was close enough. The coat was too big. It nearly swallowed her. But she relaxed just a little. In the car, warm air rushed over them as Callum turned the heater on full. Maisie curled into the seat, cloud tucked beneath her chin like a secret. Callum handed her a sealed bottle of water. She took it with both hands, whispering a quiet thank you before taking the smallest sip. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't demand answers. "I can help you find someone safe," Callum said finally, "and we'll do it the right way." Maisie nodded, staring out the window as snow blurred past. "I don't want to be trouble, you're not," he replied without hesitation. Ahead, a diner glowed through the storm-red, neon-fogged windows, warmth spilling into the night. Callum signaled and turned in. As the car slowed, Maisie's tiny suitcase tipped, and something slipped from its pocket. A photograph fluttered onto the floor. Callum reached down to return it, then froze. The photo showed a young woman holding a toddler, smiling in front of a familiar sign, Sterling Pines East. 1994. Callum's breath caught, because that wasn't just an inn. That was the place where his own story had once begun. The diner's red neon sign buzzed softly against the snow, casting a warm glow that felt almost unreal after the cold darkness outside. Open all night, it promised. Callum parked near the window engine, idling, and glanced at Maisie. "We can warm up here," he said gently. "Just for a bit." Maisie nodded, clutching Cloud tighter as Callum helped her down from the car. Inside, the bell above the door chimed a small, bright sound that made her flinch. Heat rushed over them, thick with the smell of coffee and soup. A few people sat in booths, laughing quietly, steam rising from their mugs. For a moment, Maisie stopped near the door, staring. Warmth always felt borrowed to her. Temporary. A woman behind the counter looked up, Margot Klein, late 50s, kind eyes sharpened by years of watching people. She noticed the coat swallowing Maisie's small frame, the way the child hovered close to Callum without touching him. "Cold night," Margot said softly. "Come on in." They slid into a booth by the window. Callum ordered soup, bread, and cocoa without asking. When the bowl arrived, Maisie stared at it, as if waiting for permission from the world itself. "You can eat," Callum said quietly. She lifted the spoon with both hands, blowing on it carefully before taking the smallest sip. Her shoulders lowered with the warmth. Not relief yet, but something close. Margot returned with a napkin, placing it gently beside Maisie. "You're safe here, sweetheart," Maisie whispered. "Thank you," barely audible. As Callum reached into his pocket for his wallet, his fingers brushed the photograph again. He turned it over beneath the table, reading the faded handwriting. "For Aunt Rose. Thank you for teaching me kindness." His chest tightened. Aunt Rose. The one person who had ever stood between him and a childhood that felt too heavy. Callum looked at Maisie across the table, her cheeks slowly turning pink as she sipped cocoa. Somehow, impossibly, the past had found him again. The Sterling Pines Inn stood just off the highway, its windows glowing warmly against the snow. To Callum, it had always been just another property, numbers on a spreadsheet, rooms to be filled. Tonight, it felt different. Margot unlocked a quiet room at the far end of the hall, away from the noise. Fresh blankets, a small lamp left on, no harsh lights. Maisie stepped inside cautiously, as if expecting the warmth to vanish the moment she crossed the threshold. "You can sit anywhere you like," Margot said, kneeling slightly so her voice stayed gentle. Maisie chose the edge of the bed, placing Cloud beside her with care. Callum set the suitcase down and stepped back, giving her space. "I'm going to make a call," he said, "just to make sure we do this right." She nodded. "Okay." In the hallway, Callum dialed social services. When Dana Park answered, her voice was calm, professional, unhurried. He explained what had happened, where he found Maisie, the storm, the photograph. "You did the right thing by stopping," Dana said. "I'll come by in the morning. For now, keep her warm and comfortable." Callum hung up and leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Control had always come from knowing the next step. Tonight it came from trusting the process. Inside the room, Maisie had curled beneath the blanket, her coat folded neatly beside her. She looked up when he returned. "Are you going to send me away?" she asked quietly. "Not tonight," Callum replied. "Tonight you rest." Her eyes fluttered, heavy with exhaustion. "My mom used to say angels show up when you're cold." Callum sat in the chair nearby, hands folded. I think she was right. As Maisie drifted to sleep, clutching Cloud. Close, Callum stared at the photograph in his hand. Lily's smile, the inn's old sign, Aunt Rose's name. For the first time in years, the walls he'd built around himself felt thin. Morning light slipped gently through the curtains, pale and quiet. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside buried in white stillness. Callum hadn't slept. He sat by the window with a cooling cup of coffee, watching Maisie sleep. Without the tension of the night, she looked even younger. Peaceful. As if the world hadn't asked anything from her yet. A soft knock came at the door. Margot entered with oatmeal and toast on a tray. "She'll wake soon," she whispered. "Kids always do when they smell breakfast." As if on cue, Maisie stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, searching. When she saw Callum still there, something eased in her expression. "You stayed," she said. "Yes," he answered simply. She sat up, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Margot set the tray within reach and stepped back. Maisie ate carefully, every bite deliberate. When she finished, she looked up at Callum. "Are you taking me back now?" Callum moved closer, lowering himself so they were at the same level. "I want to understand what happened first." Maisie traced the edge of the bowl with her finger. "After Mommy went away, I lived with my aunt. She said it was temporary. Then it wasn't." She paused, choosing her words like stepping stones. "We had a bad night. I got mixed up. I thought maybe I should leave so things would be quieter." Callum didn't interrupt. Silence was safer than questions. "I didn't want to be bad," Maisie added softly. "You're not," he said without hesitation. A knock echoed from the hallway. This one firmer. Callum opened the door to find Dana Park, clipboard in hand, eyes already softening as she glanced past him toward the room. "Good morning," she said. "May I come in?" Maisie clutched Cloud a little tighter. Callum nodded. "Of course." And with that, the quiet shelter of the night stepped into its next test. Dana Park didn't enter the room like an authority. She entered like someone stepping into a fragile space. She knelt near the door first, making herself smaller, letting Maisie see her face clearly before saying a word. "Hi, Maisie." "I'm Dana," she said softly. "My job is to help kids feel safe." Maisie studied her for a long moment, fingers twisting the bent ear of Cloud. Then she nodded once. Dana glanced at Callum Sterling, giving him a look that said, "Thank you for not hovering." He stepped back, choosing the chair by the window. Dana asked simple questions. Not why, but how. Not what happened, but how do you feel right now? Maisie answered in short sentences. "It's warmer. I like the soup. I don't feel lost." Dana smiled gently. "That matters." When Dana asked about her aunt, Maisie hesitated. She didn't cry. She didn't accuse. She only said, "I don't want to go back today." Dana wrote that down carefully. In the hallway, Dana spoke quietly with Callum. "There's a guardianship record on file," she said. "But there are also gaps. I need time to verify." Callum nodded. "Whatever you need. I just don't want her rushed." "That's reasonable," Dana replied. "We'll move slowly. The priority is stability." Inside the room, Margot brought a small coloring book and crayons. Maisie brightened instantly, kneeling on the bed, as she drew a house small with smoke curling from the chimney. Callum watched from a distance. "What's that?" he asked. "Our house," Maisie said simply. "The one Mommy talked about." Something in Callum's chest shifted, not pain, not joy, but recognition. Dana closed her folder. "I'll return later today," she said. "For now she stays here." Maisie looked up sharply. "Here," Dana nodded. "Here." Maisie smiled. Not wide, just enough. And in that small, quiet moment, trust began, not loudly, but carefully. The afternoon passed gently. Snow melted into slush outside. Sunlight softened the room. Maisie colored while humming a tune without words. Callum worked on his laptop, though nothing truly held his focus. He found himself listening to the sound of crayons scratching paper, to Maisie's breathing when she leaned too far into thought. Finally, he closed the screen. "Maisie," he said carefully, "do you remember where your mom worked?" She looked up. She worked at a place with a tree on the sign. A pine tree. Callum's fingers stilled. "She said the lady there gave her flowers when she was sad," Maisie added, "and said people don't heal fast, but they heal." Callum swallowed. "That lady," he said slowly, "was my aunt. Her name was Rose." Maisie blinked. Mommy talked about Aunt Rose. Callum reached for the photograph on the nightstand and held it out. "Is this her?" Maisie's eyes widened. "That's Mommy." The air in the room changed. Callum sat down heavily. Memories flooded in Rose's laugh, her steady hands, her insistence that kindness wasn't weakness. "She used to tell me," Callum said, voice low, "that homes aren't built with walls. They're built with people." Maisie smiled. "Mommy said that too." Outside, Callum's phone buzzed. He didn't need to look to know who it was. Graham Voss, his COO, his shadow. He silenced the call. In that moment, the choice felt simple. Maisie returned to her drawing and added a tall figure beside the house. "That's you," she said matter-of-factly. "You have a coat." Callum managed a small smile. "Do I look nice?" She nodded. "You look like you stay." And that more than any meeting, any contract terrified him, because staying meant responsibility, and responsibility meant changing everything. The call couldn't be ignored forever. Callum stepped into the hallway and answered as he walked. "You've missed 2 investor updates," Graham Voss snapped. "This isn't like you." "There's a situation," Callum replied evenly. Graham scoffed. "You mean the child I've heard whispers? Don't let sentiment cloud judgment." Callum stopped walking. "She's not a problem," he said. "She's a person." Silence crackled on the line. "You built this company by staying detached," Graham said coldly. "Don't lose your edge now." Callum hung up without responding. Back in the room, Maisie was packing her crayons away with careful precision. "Am I in trouble?" she asked quietly. "No," Callum said immediately. "You're not." A knock echoed through the hall, sharper this time. Dana returned, her expression composed but alert. "We need to talk." She explained calmly, "The guardianship papers appear valid, though outdated. Legally, they can't be dismissed without review." "We'll need to place Maisie in temporary care while we investigate," Dana said. "Just for a short time." Maisie froze. "Will I be alone?" she asked. Dana shook her head. "No. You'll be with people whose job is to keep you safe." Maisie turned to Callum, eyes searching. "Will you forget me?" Callum crouched in front of her, steady and sure. "I won't." Dana watched closely, then added, "You'll see him again. I promise." Maisie nodded slowly. She reached out and held the sleeve of Callum's coat. "Okay," she whispered. As Dana prepared the paperwork, Callum felt something new take root inside him. This wasn't a rescue anymore. It was a responsibility. And somewhere deep down, he knew the next time Maisie asked him to stay there would be no turning back. The hallway outside the room felt colder than before. Dana Park stood with her clipboard pressed lightly against her chest, as if even paper needed to breathe before being used. Her voice remained calm, but every word carried weight. "We'll proceed carefully," she said. "Maisie will go to a short-term care home while we review the guardianship. It's not a punishment. It's protection." Maisie sat very still on the edge of the bed. She didn't cry. She simply listened, absorbing the tone more than the words. "How long is short?" she asked. Dana met her eyes. "A few days. Maybe less." Maisie nodded, then reached for Cloud, holding the bunny against her stomach. "Can I bring him?" "Yes," Dana said immediately. Of course. That answer mattered more than the rest. Callum stood by the window, fists tucked into his pockets. He had signed billion-dollar contracts that felt lighter than this moment. Paperwork usually meant distance here. It meant deciding where a child slept. Margot entered quietly, carrying a small overnight bag she'd prepared. Pajamas, a sweater, a book with soft illustrations. "I thought this might help," she said gently. Maisie looked inside, eyes widening at the folded clothes. "These are for me, they are." Margot smiled. "Just until you come back." "Come back." Maisie glanced at Callum. He stepped closer, lowering himself again to her height. "I'll check on you," he said. "Every day if they let me." Her lip trembled, not with fear but effort. "You promise, I promise," he answered without hesitation. Dana observed the exchange carefully. This wasn't attachment built on impulse. It was steadiness, consistency, respect. Outside, the snow began again, lighter, now quieter. Dana gathered her papers. "We'll leave before sunset," she said, "so the drive is calm." Maisie slid her arm through the sleeve of Callum's coat one last time. Not clinging, just grounding herself. "Okay," she whispered. And just like that, the room that had felt like shelter became a pause, not an ending, but a waiting breath. The lobby doors opened sharply, letting in a rush of cold air and impatience. High heels clicked against the tile, fast, certain, practiced. Clara Wynne didn't look around. She marched straight to the desk as if she owned the place. "I'm here for my niece," she said. "This has gone on long enough." Margot stiffened but kept her voice even. "You'll need to speak with social services." Clara scoffed. "I already did. They know I'm her guardian." Callum stepped forward, not aggressive, not defensive, just present. "Ms. Wynne," he said calmly, "we're following the process." Clara's eyes flicked to him, sharp and dismissive. "And who are you supposed to be? Someone who found a lost child in a snowstorm," he replied, and made sure she was safe. Maisie appeared behind Margot, Cloud tucked under her arm. The moment Clara saw her, her smile snapped into place, tight, rehearsed. "There you are," Clara said. "You really scared me." Maisie didn't move. Dana stepped between them smoothly. "Miss Wynne will speak privately." In the corner of the lobby, voices stayed low but tense. Clara insisted it was a misunderstanding, a disagreement, a moment blown out of proportion. Dana listened, took notes, asked for dates, details. Then she asked, "Why were the guardianship papers not updated after your address change?" Clara blinked. "Just once. That's not relevant," she snapped. "She's my responsibility." Maisie watched from across the room, heart pounding, not from fear, but uncertainty. She looked at Callum, searching his face for signals. He gave her one, a slow nod. "You're okay." Dana returned to Maisie and knelt again. "Sweetheart, we're going to make sure everything is clear before decisions are made." Maisie swallowed. "I don't want to be confusing." "You're not," Dana said firmly. "Grown-up paperwork can be confusing. That's not your job to fix." Clara folded her arms, clearly irritated. "We're leaving," she said. Dana shook her head. "Not yet." The silence that followed was thick, not dangerous, but decisive. And for the first time, Clara looked unsure. The call came just after dusk. Dana stepped aside to answer it, her expression tightening with every word she heard. When she returned, she didn't sit. "There's been a development," she said. Callum's chest sank. The guardianship documents were filed with an emergency request, Dana explained. A clerk approved temporary enforcement pending review. Margot muttered softly, "That was fast. Too fast." Dana nodded. "I don't like it either, but legally I have to comply temporarily." Maisie's fingers curled into Cloud's fur. "Does that mean I have to go now?" Dana crouched. "For tonight, yes, but this is not finished. I promise you." Maisie looked up at Callum. "You said you wouldn't forget me." He crouched beside her, steady. "And I won't. I'll be there tomorrow." She hesitated, then did something small but brave. She slipped Cloud into Callum's hands. "Can you keep him safe until I come back?" Callum's throat tightened. "I will." Dana watched closely. This was trust, not dependence. A child choosing where to place something precious. At the door, Clara waited, impatience barely masked. Maisie took one last look at the room. At Margot. At Callum. Then she squared her shoulders and walked beside Dana. As the car pulled away, snow began falling harder again, blurring the taillights into red smears. Callum stood in the lobby long after they disappeared. Margot joined him. "Something about this feels wrong." Callum nodded. "It is." His phone buzzed. A message from Graham Voss. "Handled the paperwork. You're welcome." Callum stared at the screen, cold spreading through his chest. This wasn't about a child. It was about control. And for the first time, Callum Sterling understood to protect Maisie, he might have to dismantle the world he built. The lobby lights hummed softly, as if the building itself was trying not to wake anyone. Outside, the snow didn't fall like before. It drifted heavier, slower, like the sky had turned into a quiet warning. Callum Sterling sat alone at the edge of a booth with a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. He kept turning Cloud, the little white bunny, in his hands, thumb brushing the worn ear, as if the simple motion could keep Maisie close. His phone lay face up on the table, glowing with the last message from Graham Voss. "Handled the paperwork. You're welcome." It wasn't a threat. It didn't need to be. It was something colder. Margot had gone home, but she'd left the front desk number on a sticky note if you need anything. As if she could sense that tonight wouldn't sit still. Callum stared out the window at the empty road and tried to force his mind back into its old shape, logic, procedure, patience. He told himself the system would correct itself by morning. Dana Park was competent. The review would happen. The law would see what was right. But the ache in his chest didn't care about reasoning. The phone rang. Callum grabbed it too quickly, nearly knocking the coffee over. He expected Graham again. Instead, it was Dana. Her voice was still calm, but the calm sounded different now, stretched tight around urgency. "Mr. Sterling," she said, "I'm at the short-term care home." Callum stood. "Is Maisie okay?" "She was okay," Dana replied. Then Clara arrived with a second file signed Addendum Emergency Pickup Authorization. "It's improperly filed, but it has enough stamps to force a temporary release pending review." Callum felt the room tilt. "So you had to give her back." There was a pause on the line long enough to carry guilt. "For tonight," Dana said quietly. "I fought it. I escalated it. My supervisor is filing an emergency hold in the morning. But the legal window right now was not on our side." Callum's hand tightened around the phone. "Where did Clara take her?" "We followed protocol," Dana said. "We documented the pickup. We attempted an immediate welfare verification at the address listed. No response." His stomach dropped. No response. "The address appears inconsistent," Dana admitted. "It might be outdated, or it might be intentionally vague." Callum closed his eyes. The image of Maisie walking into the snow returned like a flash of cold air. Dana continued, voice firmer. "Mr. Sterling, I need you to hear me clearly. This is not your fault. You did the right thing bringing her in. You reported. You cooperated. That matters." But Callum wasn't listening to comfort. He was listening to the promise he had made. "I told her I wouldn't forget her." he said. Dana exhaled. And you haven't. That's why I'm calling. I filed the emergency request, but we also need help verifying the real location. If we can confirm where Clara actually took her, law enforcement can conduct a lawful welfare check. Tell me what you need, Callum said. Dana hesitated as if weighing professional boundaries against a child's stability. Then Clara's paperwork references a trailer park management office, not a private home. It's near County Road 17, an older lot, Silver Ridge. Callum's eyes opened, his mind snapped into motion, not panic, purpose. I'm going, he said. You can't go alone, Dana warned. Don't confront anyone. Don't do anything that puts a child in the middle. I won't, Callum said, voice low. I'm not going to be a hero. I'm going to be... correct. Good, Dana replied, relief bleeding into her tone. I'll notify the on-call officer. Meet us at the entrance. Stay in public view. Callum hung up. He stood for a moment in the quiet lobby, the bunny in his hands, the snow thickening outside. The empire he built was made of doors that opened with his name. Tonight, only one door mattered, and behind it somewhere was a little girl who had trusted him with a stuffed bunny and a single sentence, "Don't forget me." Callum put on his coat and stepped into the snow. Silver Ridge was not the kind of place people pictured when they said Colorado winter. It wasn't postcard mountains and glowing cabins. It was flat quiet and tired rows of small homes. A single office building sat near the entrance, its porch light buzzing like an insect trapped in glass. Callum parked under a flickering lamp and did exactly what Dana told him. He waited in the open engine off hazard lights on hands visible, not hiding, not rushing, not turning this into a scene. Snow crusted along the edges of his windshield. The world felt muted, as if even sound was cautious. Minutes later, Dana's car arrived, followed by a patrol vehicle. The officer, calm and practical, confirmed the plan. They would check the office first, verify documentation, make contact if possible, and proceed by the book. Callum nodded. I understand. Dana looked at him. Remember, no confrontation. I won't, he promised. They approached together. The officer knocked. No answer. Dana checked her file. This is the address listed as pickup location, not residency. The officer nodded. Then it's likely a meeting point. Callum swallowed, meaning she could be anywhere. Not anywhere, Dana corrected. Somewhere connected. And we'll find it. The officer stepped around the side of the office and peered through a window where the blinds didn't fully close. A light was on inside. Movement. He raised a hand to signal calm. Someone's in there. Dana approached the door again. Hello, social services. We're here for a welfare verification. A pause. Then the door opened, not wide, just enough to show Clara Wynn's face, lips pressed tight, as if she'd been practicing patience in the mirror and hated how it felt. What is this? She snapped. It's midnight. Dana's tone stayed neutral. We need to confirm the child's safety and location. It's standard procedure after an emergency pickup. Clara rolled her eyes. She's fine. She's with me. Callum didn't speak. He let Dana lead. Where is she? Dana asked. Clara hesitated for half a second too long. She's resting, Clara said. She's tired. This whole thing is ridiculous. The officer stepped forward. Ma'am, we need to see the child for confirmation. Clara's jaw tightened. You can't just barge in. We're not, the officer said calmly. We're requesting verification. If refused, we will document refusal and escalate for a court order. Clara's eyes flicked to Callum for the first time. You, she hissed under her breath, as if his mere presence was an insult. Callum finally spoke, and when he did, his voice was steady. I'm not here to argue with you, he said. I'm here to make sure Maisie is okay. Clara scoffed. You don't care about her. You care about control. Callum almost laughed at the irony, but he didn't. He only said, I care about what's right. The office smelled like cheap cleaner and paper. A printer sat on a desk, warm as if it had just finished a job. Dana noticed. So did Callum. Clara shifted her body slightly, blocking the hallway. Dana's eyes narrowed, not with anger, with attention. "Ms. Wynne, I'm going to ask again. Where is Maisie?" Clara's mouth opened, and a phone buzzed somewhere behind her. She turned too quickly, reacting before thinking. Callum heard a voice through the thin interior wall, not Maisie's voice, soft humming, a tune without words, familiar from the motel room. Callum's chest tightened. She was here. Dana heard it too. Her posture changed instantly. "That's her," she said quietly. The officer didn't step in. He simply raised his radio. "We have auditory confirmation. Requesting supervisory authorization for immediate welfare contact." Clara's confidence cracked. "This is harassment." Dana kept her voice low, almost kind, because that's how you protect children. "No," she said. "This is prevention." Callum stared at the printer, at the fresh papers, at Clara's frantic mask slipping, and inside him a colder realization formed. This wasn't just an overwhelmed guardian. This was coordination, and someone with power had made sure the paperwork moved fast. Someone who knew how systems bent when pressed. Someone like Graham Voss. The patrol officer didn't raise his voice. He didn't touch anyone. He simply moved the situation into the safest lane it could travel: documentation, protocol, child first steps. "Ma'am," he said, "we're requesting that you allow Ms. Park to see the child. If you refuse, you may be ordered to comply." Clara's hands shook, not from fear, but from frustration at being boxed in by procedure. "This is ridiculous," she spat. "She's in the back room." Happy Dana didn't smile. She only nodded, turned her body sideways, and walked with slow, careful steps, like someone crossing a fragile bridge. Callum stayed where he was, exactly as instructed. He did not follow. He did not rush. He did not make the child's safety about his own emotion. A moment later, Dana's voice floated back from the hallway, gentle and controlled. "Hi, Maisie. It's Dana. You're okay?" Callum's breath caught. Then softer Maisie's voice. "I have Cloud?" she asked, quiet as snow. Callum blinked hard, throat tightening. Dana answered, "Cloud is safe. Mr. Sterling has him." Silence. Then Dana said, "Would you like to come where it's warm and calm again?" A small pause. Then yes. That single word hit Callum like a bell. Dana reappeared with Maisie beside her, not pulled, not forced. Maisie walked on her own feet, shoulders small but squared, clutching the sleeve of a borrowed sweater. Her eyes found Callum instantly, not with drama, not with tears, just relief that looked too old for 6. Callum didn't move fast. He crouched and held the bunny out gently. "Cloud kept your spot," he whispered. Maisie took the bunny with both hands as if receiving something sacred. She pressed her forehead to the plush for half a second, just enough to breathe. The officer spoke quietly with Clara, documenting her statements, confirming identity, noting discrepancies. Dana asked for the second file Clara had brought. Clara resisted at first, then shoved a folder onto the counter. "Take it. You people love paper so much." Dana opened it, scanning quickly, and then her eyes stopped. Callum saw it, the shift in her face, the moment professionalism met something uglier. "What is it?" he asked quietly. Dana didn't answer immediately. She pulled out a receipt stapled behind the addendum: bank transfer confirmation, printed fresh. The name at the top wasn't Clara's. It was Graham Voss. Callum felt his pulse slow, not calm, but sharpened. The world clicked into place. Graham wasn't just pushing Callum back to work. He was creating a crisis, a distraction, a lever, something he could later point to and say, "He's unstable, he's distracted, he's unfit to lead." And the child Maisie was never a person in Graham's math. She was a variable. Dana looked up at Callum, voice low. "This changes everything." The officer glanced at the receipt. We'll forward this to the appropriate unit. Clara's mouth opened, then closed. Her anger faltered, replaced by something like panic. That's not, she began. Dana cut in, not harshly but firmly. Ms. Wynne, you are not being accused by me, but this documentation will be reviewed. Callum stood slowly still, keeping distance from Maisie's space, still letting Dana and the officer do their job. Maisie leaned slightly toward him anyway, just enough for her voice to reach his coat. You came back, she whispered. Callum didn't make promises he couldn't legally keep. He made the only one that mattered. I'm here, he said, and I'm not leaving you alone in this. Outside, snow drifted like ash in the streetlight. Inside the small office, paper lay on the counter, and for the first time it wasn't just paperwork. It was proof. And proof meant the next storm wouldn't be snow. It would be public, corporate, legal. But Callum Sterling had already crossed the point where he cared about image more than a child's trust. He looked at Maisie's small hand gripping Cloud. Then he looked at Dana. Tell me what the next step is, he said. Dana nodded once. We protect her, she replied. And we do it the right way. And in that moment, without shouting, without violence, the real fight began. The boardroom in Denver had no windows. Callum Sterling used to like it that way. No distractions, no weather, just numbers, faces, and decisions that didn't require feelings. This morning it felt like a cage. Graham Voss sat at the far end of the table, perfectly composed, fingers steepled, as if nothing in the world could surprise him. Around them, board members murmured softly, flipping through reports. Callum stood instead of sitting. I'm stepping down as acting CEO, he said calmly. The room froze. Graham's lips curved into something close to a smile. This is highly irregular, he said smoothly, but perhaps necessary. Callum didn't look at him. He looked at the board. I'm not abandoning responsibility, Callum continued. I'm removing conflict. Effective immediately, I'm recusing myself from executive decisions while a legal review is underway. Murmurs turned into whispers. One board member frowned. What legal review? Callum nodded once. An investigation involving unauthorized corporate transfers and manipulation of external legal processes. Graham's smile vanished. Callum placed a folder on the table. Inside were copies, bank records, timestamps, communications. Nothing dramatic, nothing speculative, just facts. These funds, Callum said evenly, were transferred without board approval. Their purpose was not business-related. Silence thickened. Graham leaned back slowly. You're making a serious accusation. I'm presenting documentation, Callum replied. The accusation will be decided by counsel. The board chair cleared his throat. Mr. Voss, you'll cooperate fully. Graham's jaw tightened. Of course. Callum exhaled quietly. This was not revenge. It was containment. As he left the room, his phone buzzed. A message from Dana Park. Maisie is with me. She's calm. She asked for you. For the first time that day, Callum smiled. The family services office smelled like paper and coffee. Dana sat across from Callum with a thin stack of forms between them. Not contracts, not deals, documents that carried a different kind of weight. This is a temporary guardianship request, Dana explained. It gives Maisie stability while the case proceeds. It's voluntary but serious. Callum nodded. I understand. You'll need to adjust your schedule, Dana continued. Background checks, home review, consistency. Callum almost laughed at that. Consistency was the one thing he'd avoided his entire life. I can do that, he said. In the adjacent room, Maisie sat with a child advocate drawing quietly. When she saw Callum through the glass, she waved Cloud in greeting. Dana followed his gaze. She trusts you. Callum swallowed. I don't want to break that. Dana slid the papers forward. Then don't. He signed, not with flourish, not with ceremony, just his name steady and clear. Later, Dana knelt beside Maisie. "You'll be staying with Callum for a while, only if you're okay with that." Maisie looked at Callum, not excited, not overwhelmed, thoughtful. "Will I still see my school?" she asked. "Yes," Dana said. "And your friends?" Maisie nodded. Then she walked over and took Callum's hand. "I'm okay," she said. That was all the permission he needed. The Sterling Pines Inn looked different in daylight, not because it had changed, but because Callum had. Maisie stepped inside, slowly, backpack on her shoulders, cloud tucked under one arm. She paused, looking around. "This is where Mommy worked," she said. "Yes," Callum replied. "And where you're welcome." Margot waited near the desk, eyes shining. "Your room's ready," she said softly. "With extra blankets." Maisie smiled. That night, they ate soup together at the small dining table. No speeches, no explanations, just quiet. Afterward, Maisie climbed into bed, arranging Cloud just right. Callum stood in the doorway. "I'll be right across the hall." She nodded. "Okay." As he turned to leave, she spoke again. "Mr. Callum, yes." "Thank you for staying." Callum paused. The words hit deeper than any applause ever had. "You don't have to thank me," he said gently. "This is what people are supposed to do." Later, Callum sat alone by the window watching snow melt into dark pavement. His phone buzzed with messages, press inquiries, board updates, speculation. He silenced them all. Across the hall, Maisie slept peacefully for the first time in days. And for the first time in years, Callum Sterling understood something simple and terrifying. Success had never been about what he controlled. It had been about what he chose to protect. The truth didn't explode. It moved quietly. Within weeks, the investigation unfolded the way real justice often does, through files audits, interviews, and patient listening. Graham Voss did not storm out of a building in handcuffs. Instead, he was removed from authority, suspended pending legal review, and later charged through proper corporate and civil channels. No shouting, no spectacle, just consequences. Callum Sterling watched it all from a distance. He released a single public statement, measured, calm, clear. It spoke about accountability, transparency, and responsibility. Not once did it mention Maisie by name. She was never a headline. At the Family Services office, Dana Park finalized the next step. Clara Wynn's guardianship was formally revoked after review. The inconsistencies, the financial interference, the rushed paperwork, it all mattered now. Maisie sat in the waiting room with Cloud feet swinging gently above the floor. "Does this mean I did something right?" she asked Dana. Dana smiled. "It means the adults did their jobs." Maisie considered that, then nodded, as if that explanation made perfect sense. When Dana told her she could stay with Callum longer safely, legally, with structure, Maisie didn't jump or cry. She simply reached for Callum's hand. "Okay," she said. Outside, snow melted into thin streams along the sidewalk. Spring was coming slow and careful, and for the first time the future didn't feel like something to escape. The building used to be an old annex behind the original inn. Quiet. Forgotten. Callum stood in the doorway as sunlight poured through newly cleaned windows. Fresh paint softened the walls. Shelves waited for books. A small kitchen gleamed with unused warmth. "This is for kids who need time," he said quietly. Maisie looked around, eyes wide but calm. "Like waiting rooms, like breathing rooms," Callum replied. "They called it Rose Haven, in honor of Aunt Rose and Lily Hart." There was no ribbon-cutting ceremony, no cameras, just a few local staff, Dana, Margot, and children's advocates, who understood that safety didn't need applause. Maisie helped hang a small sign near the door. Her letters were uneven but proud. "Welcome." Later, as workers finished setting up a play corner, Maisie tugged Callum's sleeve. "Mommy would like this," she said. Callum knelt beside her. "I think so too." He funded Rose Haven not as charity, but as commitment, clear policies, oversight, trained caregivers, And one rule written on the first page: children are never problems to be solved. They are people to be protected. Maisie placed Cloud on a shelf in the common room like he belonged there, and somehow so did she. Spring arrived softly. The snow disappeared from the roads, then from memory. Flowers bloomed along the path behind the inn. Laughter replaced silence. Maisie ran across the courtyard with another child from Rose Haven, Cloud bouncing under her arm. Her laughter rang clear and unafraid. Callum watched from the steps, hands in his pockets, a quiet smile resting where control used to live. "Are we home?" Maisie asked later, slipping her hand into his. Callum looked around, not at the buildings, not at the land, but at the people moving gently through it. "Yes," he said, "we are." That evening, Maisie climbed onto the small stool near the fireplace and spoke to a few visitors, nothing rehearsed, nothing forced. "My mommy said angels don't have wings," she said shyly. "They just show up when you're cold." The room went still. She looked at Callum, then back at the others. Mr. Callum showed up. Callum felt his chest tighten, not with pride, but gratitude. Later, when the lights dimmed and Maisie curled into bed, she whispered, "You didn't forget me." Callum sat beside her, voice low and sure. "I never will." Outside, the night was calm, not empty, just peaceful, and somewhere between a quiet promise kept and a child finally safe, a man who once believed only in control learned the truest measure of success. Not what you build for yourself, but who you choose to stand beside when the world is cold. Did this story leave a lasting impression on you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, rate it from 1 to 10, and tap the end screen to see another heartwarming story waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Until our next story.